Good morning, Steve Conley. How are you?
Good morning, Dan. How are you?
I am good. This is Mazes and Muses, where we roam the labyrinth of creativity in regards to Dungeons and Dragons and tabletop role playing games. And happy belated Dungeons and Dragons 50th birthday to you, Steve.
Happy belated to you as well. I heard there was a question about whether it was the 26th or the 27th. What's the official date? What's the
I believe it's the 26th. I believe it was yesterday.
All right. I'm sure how it is in the Gregorian calendar or where
Yeah, I don't, who knows? I'm sure,
the movement of the
you say Gregorian?
stars.
Did you say Gregorian calendar or
I did.
or Gragnorian
The
calendar?
Gygaxian calendar, where are we
Yeah.
all? The Grognardian calendar.
But anyway, Dungeons and Dragons has been around for 50 years now, and
we've been here for all of it.
all of it. Well, I started, let's see, so that would be, it came out in 74. I started in 77. So
I was reading that the second Gen Con was in 69, and that is where Gygax and Arneson got together. And that was on the 23rd and 24th of August, 1969. I was born the next day. So it is at least one day older in concept, in theory, than I am. So
you're the Messiah.
What's that?
You're the D&D
No,
Messiah.
I was late by a day, as is normal,
No.
as is custom in the Conley home. But this has been such a big part of my life, all of it. It seems like it's been there the whole time. It's always felt like comics, omnipresent. It was always there. I remember when it became a big deal, it kind of invaded my life the way Star Wars did. Like you could just, when it just lit up all the kids in the neighborhoods and everyone's just talking about Star Wars. When Dungeons and Dragons came out, it was the exact same thing where everybody, let's go play, let's do this thing. And I don't remember who I don't know who was patient zero in my group of friends, but yeah, it was huge. It changed so much.
I keep looking down because I've got dogs in my office and I hear them chewing on something, and I got to make sure they're not chewing on one of my, D&D books that are scattered throughout the entire office.
Oh no! One
of them did a good job on the 3rd edition Player's Handbook or the 2nd edition Player's Handbook. I can't remember one. So not Player's Handbook, Dungeon Master's Guide, but it happens. It's worth being a dog owner. But anyway, back to our discussion about the origins of Dungeons and Dragons in our lives. I remember the day vividly. I lived in Huntington Beach, and I went down to see a movie in Garden Grove. Now, for those of you in Southern California, you know that where those. It was an old movie. It was a movie theater. It's not there anymore, on Garden Grove Boulevard, I believe. Garden Grove Boulevard and Brookhurst or Bristol, maybe. I'm not sure. But I went to go see a movie. And I believe the movie was the skateboarding classic featuring Leif Garrett called Skateboard. Does it ring a bell to you, Steve?
It does not ring a bell.
You have never seen Skateboard featuring Leif Garrett?
No, I've not. I've not.
Oh, you do remember the name Leif Garrett, though, right?
I do know the name, and I call myself a nerd. How dare I?
He was like a pop star in the late 70s and all the Teen Beat, Tiger Beat magazines. Kind of a Sean Cassidy type.
I knew Sean Cassidy and some of those. They were like the Hardy Boys. That was like kind of their thing. But if it found its way on the TV, I knew about it. But I was not. I let my Tiger Beat subscription lapse.
I remember from the covers of Dynamite magazine. You remember those?
Sure.
Yeah. So I went to go see this movie because skateboarding was all the rage. We had, in the late 70s here in Southern California, and it was a movie very much formulistic type of thing. Let's get this young, whatever. So enough talk about Leif Garrett in the movie Skateboard. But a couple doors down from the theater was a comic book shop. And I was already way into comic books at that point, 9-year-old Dan Taylor. And I went in, and at the back of the shop, they had role play. They had Dungeons and Dragons. And we're talking the little white box with the 3 tan boxes inside.
Were they was as a product, or were people playing it?
Product. And they also had some miniatures and in little Ziploc tiny baggies and stuff like that. So I remember I bought a bag of the miniatures, and the guy told me, because I just thought they looked cool. And the guy told behind the counter says, well, that's for this game, Dungeons and Dragons. You need to buy this game. I'm like, $10 though. I don't know, to a 9-year-old Dan Taylor in 1977 is a lot of money.
Yeah, sure.
But I went ahead and did it. And that was my first experience of Dungeons and Dragons. Is I bought the game unknowing what it was, and I brought it home to my friends. And that summer we started playing in my buddy Ron Ankney's garage.
That's
all
awesome.
Summer long and all.
So you played with like the white books?
Yeah.
The original.
Yeah.
Wow.
But I had no idea how to play it. I had, like I said, I had no idea what the difference between hit points and hit die were. I didn't know that you rolled that many hit dice to determine how many hit points you had. So
what do you remember about the figures that you bought? What do you remember about those?
One of them was like a little slime thing. I remember that. That's all I really remember is just that one. But they weren't in a box or anything like that. And I'm sure they were actually lead.
Yeah, they were made of radioactive isotopes and bits of asbestos.
But I had them forever. Because I don't even think I had the right dice to play Dungeons, because the original set didn't come with dice, I don't believe. Maybe it did. I can't remember. But yeah, I still wish I had that set to this day, but I've gone through many copies of many editions throughout the years. So
that's a good point. So who did 9-year-old Dan Taylor become? Who the hell are you, Dan Taylor?
I am Dan Taylor, and I am a dungeon master for the show Catacombs and Comedians, which also is Catacombs Comedians presents Catacombs and Creators. Catacombs Comedians, I take stand-up comics, and we go to comedy clubs and we play Dungeons and Dragons live on stage in front of an audience. Catacombs and Creators, Jolene. Catacombs and Creators is where I get creators from the D&D and tabletop community of content, and we play at conventions and in front of a live audience, and there's shenanigans to both of them. So that's who the hell I am. Who the hell are you, Steve?
Hi, the hell I'm Steve Conley. I write and draw the webcomic The Middle Age. Episode 299 was just posted. We're on the precipice of episode 300. I've been doing that for about 7 years. That kind of led me back into my love of role-playing games. I didn't start as early as Dan did, but deeply into it, and to the point where I've been creating trying to make it. I've been saying TTRPG supplements. I think I can say D&D material, D&D support material. I feel like that's a better way to it helps people who don't understand. When I say a TTRPG supplement, they're like, what is that for the bad back? Is that like it's got like iodine in it? My first one was Intoximancy, which got any nomination, and then there's Death Dealing, and I'm currently working on Metadomain, which was a successful Kickstarter, which wrapped up earlier this month. And I'm about to launch the fourth one.
Now I got my survey.
You've been served
for Meta. Yeah, I got served my survey for Metadomain. I haven't filled it out yet because in the past I filled it out very hurriedly and quickly, and that didn't get me anything quicker. So take my sweet time with this one.
A TTRPG project is neither early nor is it late. It arrived precisely when it means to, Dan Taylor.
So you're getting ready for Zine Quest. Let's cover Zine Quest.
Although actually, can we backpack? Can we backpack? Can we go through Europe briefly? Can we backtrack? So 9-year-old Dan Taylor gets this box of D&D 50, not quite 50 years ago, a little less than 50 years ago. And you play it with your friends, don't know how to play it. You got your slime figure. How long does that fad last? How long do you keep playing? And then how long is it then before you get like the red box or the blue box and they finally produce a product that a kid can wrap their heads around?
I'm not sure when the first, because I remember we had the red box or blue box, maybe the blue box.
The expert, was it expert edition?
So we got that. My buddy Ron Ankeny, his older brother Keith got it. And so they started DMing because they were like 3 years. He was like 3.5 years older than us, 4 years or so, and his buddies. But it did take us long to get into the Advanced Dungeons and Dragons books. I remember that, and
Okay.
that was my mainstay. I have more memories playing that than the original. The original didn't last too long with us. The original box set, because I mean they were. I don't know if you go back and look at them. I mean they're hard to decipher for a 9-year-old if you've never played a war game before. You know,
Absolutely.
like I said, we didn't know the difference between hit dice and hit points. I thought it was a typo.
And it could have been. And
yeah,
the production wasn't great. The art, the idea that all that beautiful black and white artwork had to be black and white artwork so it could be photocopied properly. It had to be like chunky. And I love that chunkiness, but I didn't realize it was like a practical decision because anything wispy, if you did some sort of subtle crow quill inking, that's gone. There's no way it was going to survive the photocopier.
So that was, I mean, at the one point we had I don't know, almost a 4 foot by 8 foot large sheet of graph paper. Thank you, Maddie. I'm with you. I tried dungeon mastering, on stage in front of a live audience and not knowing the difference. Anyway, we had somebody had like a huge piece of graph paper. I mean, I'm talking like 4 feet by 8 feet. And that first adventure, what was it? Keep on the Borderlands?
Sure. Yeah.
They transferred the map that was in the module onto that piece of graph paper.
Amazing.
So we used our miniatures, my little slime miniature, and the 1-inch squares on that. And so we used that dungeon over and over again for different adventures.
That's awesome.
On the Ankeny's garage floor.
Do you remember your character? What do you know? What do you remember about your character?
I remember my advanced Dungeons and Dragons character. His name was Lothar.
Excellent.
And Edwin, awesome. Yep, Hero Quest. I remember that well. Didn't play it a lot. And my character was Lothar, and he was a fighter. Just again, because I didn't understand the rules all that well. So fighter was the easiest thing to play.
Sure.
And he went from, I mean, we would just, okay, who's DMing today? Ron, you're DMing. Okay, I'm playing with Lothar. Keith, he had an assassin character known as the Crimson Shadow that we all feared. And it eventually would kill all of our characters eventually. Keith was kind of an asshole if you haven't figured that out. He's okay now. I don't remember Ron's character. My buddy Clay had a magic user that he played all the time. But we would just, I mean, some days Ron and I would just get together and he'd DM. I would have Lothar. And he, we just used that DM's guide with the random treasure tables. And, in the monster manual told you what type of, treasure chart to look on there. And we would just almost gift each other's player characters with the hordes of gold and magic items.
Sure.
All because we had to build up our defenses and experiences so Crimson Shadow didn't kill us all. To this day, I still use Crimson Shadow as an NPC in my adventures and D&D games.
He still terrifies you. That's I remember that as playing early on, the kind of loose, like, hey, this week, oh, you got a sword. Okay, make sure next week I get one. It had that kind of like, it was no different than running around the backyard and pretending to be, cops and robbers or something like that. It was very much, we finally have rules and we could do this indoors when it's raining.
And then I remember we'd all sit down, for the big game on a weekend, and because we knew Keith's Crimson Shadow was going to kill one of us. Just because he liked to do that sort of shit. So the weekend before, Ron would supply me. I would earn it, mind you. Like a +5 Vorpal sword, and a girdle of Storm Giant strength, and plate mail +5. I earned it, but that just happened to be facing the Crimson Shadow the next weekend.
That's awesome.
So yeah, so we've, it's been a part of my life forever, and and I don't see it going away. That's like why I went and got that tattoo a couple weeks ago or a month ago or so.
And you have you been playing? I know you've been picking up the books ever since, but were you playing second edition and third edition and all that all the way through, or was it more like as real life took over, you were revisiting it from time to time, dipping into the books?
I mean, I carried my first edition Advanced Dungeons and Dragons books all over the place in my back. I mean, all over. In fact, I remember my freshman year in high school, my English teacher, we had a project where we had to memorize Shylock's speech from Merchant of Venice. The quality of mercy is not strength, droppeth from the heaven as a gentle rain, blah, 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 blah. And it was pass or fail. You either learned the whole thing and got an A, or you didn't and you got an F. And I could not memorize this whole thing, to the point where my teacher, Mrs. Karen Scarron was her name. She was a lovely teacher. And she goes, Dan, how come you can memorize all of those Dungeons and Dragons rules, but you can't memorize this 14 lines of Shakespeare? And I'm like, I can't memorize them all. That's why I have them in my backpack right now. All the books in my backpack right now.
It's a good answer.
So she gave me a C.
The smart ass score. Fantastic.
So D&D helped me, not flunk that class. And I played it when the second edition came out. We transferred into that quite easily, and we continued to play a lot. Third edition, kind of died down a little bit. Everybody got real jobs and married and out of, either finished college or dropped out of college. And when third edition came out, I jumped way back in. I'm like, really? Let's go, third edition. And 3.5, whatever I did, I didn't make a big, I wasn't all, whatever. I really couldn't tell the difference for the most part, with our group. Fourth edition, life was going on too much for me to really play, but I got the main books, and I got some of the products, I think. But yeah, like when second edition came out, that's when I worked in a game store selling Dungeons and Dragons books to kids.
That's great.
So I had a lot of D&D books. And so I don't remember playing a lot of fourth edition, but then when fifth edition popped out, I was like, let's make sure we're back into this and into it strong. But back then in those days, I played a lot of other RPGs like Gamma World, Boot Hill, Champions was a favorite. We dabbled in Palladium. But yeah, that's I don't know what, I can't remember the question you asked me, but there's my long
That's
answer.
great. I love it. I had a friend, James Perazzo, on Long Island when I grew up. He had every book, and that's how I knew about all this stuff. He had White Wolf magazine and Dragon magazine, and he had like every game, Traveler, and we played Villains and Vigilantes and Champions, and Marvel Superheroes was a big game for us. That kind of derailed us off of D&D for the longest time. I don't know if people who play D&D now know how big Marvel Superheroes was at the time. Super simple system, a big old chart describing how to hit. It was compared to what D&D was, where everyone needed a slide rule, math, a lot more math, and Marvel
Thaco.
Still too much math for most people. I got a +1, but they got their partially behind cover. I know they've simplified a lot of it for 5e beautifully, but Marvel was amazing and really took over for a lot of us, at least in my neck of the woods. But then I didn't play for 25 years, and then pandemic happens, and friends reach out, and people have a little more time in their lives and a lot more downtime, and man, 5e fit like a glove. It was like coming home. It's been great. So that's kind of why I jumped in with both feet, and I get obsessed with things. It's like, oh, this is the thing I'm doing. I'm going to learn HTML. I'll do, fine. That's going to take over my life for a few years. Or I'm going to learn infographics. That'll take over my life for you. I'm going to learn 3D printing. That'll take over my life for a few years. But man, D&D it's been great. I'm so glad, and I'm so glad that apparently this next edition is not going to be abandoning too much of 5e, and so we can just hopefully keep doing what we're doing.
I think we're fine. I'm not sweating it. Now, in 4 days is Zine month.
Yes.
What are your plans for Zine Quest?
Well, for folks who don't know, Zine Quest and Zine Month is a big TTRPG month, big for role-playing games, in that a lot of crowdfunding happens in February. I think the idea was that January is a very slow month in retail and in creative spaces and things like that, and they wanted to kind of give so Kickstarter has their Make 100 event, and then in February, Zine Month, Zinemo, the hashtag Zinemo, and hashtag Zine Quest is Kickstarter's proprietary. It's their little zine month. I'm going to be taking part. I'll be taking part toward the end of the month. My project will launch. It'll be called Nibblemancy. It's technically a sequel of sorts to Intoximancy, which got the Eddie nomination, and it will launch once the rewards from my last Kickstarter ship. I'm a big proponent of not overlapping Kickstarters and crowdfunding when possible. Sometimes it's impossible not to overlap them because there's always going to be someone who hasn't answered the survey.
Yeah.
I heard that even bringing up the topic of backers who don't answer their surveys, folks are coming out. Yeah, someone from 4 years ago. I have their stuff here. I don't know what to do with it. I hope they're alive. So once everything from the meta domain, the Prayer's Handbook, once that all ships, then I'll be launching Nibblemancy, and the placeholder page is live. If folks go to nibblemancy.com, they can queue up. Close to 100 people have already, which is amazing. I've been mentioning it in my updates with my other Kickstarters, so far so good.
So Nibblemancy is your Zine Quest entry?
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay.
It'll be another wizard subclass. It's very much themed like Intoximancy is, except it's baking and cooking, and it's right out of the pages of my webcomic, The Middle Age. There's an Intoximancer in the Middle Age, and that's what put me on this 5e path to begin with. It's like, I was doing a Kickstarter for minis that I had sculpted because the pandemic. I go into D&D and I start sculpting, and so I've been sculpting. So I do these minis, and then I make a stretch goal, this 5e subclass, and then that we don't unlock it. I make it a standalone project, and it takes off, and it's bigger than the original project. It gets an any nomination. So I guess I'm doing this for the foreseeable future, and the current plan is to do at least 3 more D&D supplements this year. I'm going to keep producing these books as long as people like them, and so far the response has been lovely.
And then at the end, you could also put them all in one big book.
I can't make the math of that make sense to me. I would have to have thousands of subscribers. I'm amazed my projects get close to 500 subscribers, 500 backers. I mean, given that some of these projects, these huge projects get 25,000, huge numbers, but I got 1/50th of that, and I'm nobody, right? So I feel like that's always how I felt when I was in the comic book world. Like I produced my comic and someone's like, how many did you sell? I sold 2,000 copies. You're like, that's not like Batman sold 100,000. If I sold 1/50th of Batman, I'll take that.
Yeah. No, I was the same way when I was doing comics. How did you do? Well, we hit the previews top 200 sales,
Uh-huh.
And when you look at all the 2,000 titles a month that came out back in the day,
yeah,
that's not too shabby.
Right. Yeah. It's if you're comparing yourself to Batman, you're gonna have, stomach aches. But I feel like my little projects, my little way, as long as I keep doing them and people keep being happy about them, the responses are always kind. Every time I post an update for one of my projects, I've been much more active on my Patreon as well, and people have been really responding to that. So it's been so far 2024 career-wise has been fantastic. I think this is a year where I will be my RPGs and comics will be my primary source of income. It has been comics in the past, but I think tabletop games will now take over. So I'm not sure how long this wave will last. I'm used to seeing systems collapse. I worry about Kickstarter. I worry about crowdfunding. But for as long as I can do this, I'm really happy to be doing it.
Well, you're a success story. You rolled a 20, a natural 20 on your
a dirty 20. A dirty 20. I rolled a dirty 20. So speaking of crits, I have been so impressed by so many of these projects. I think I might even shared some of them with you over on Kickstarter. Some of these ones there was one like the periodic table of elementals.
Yeah, that was one of those. I wish I would have thought of it first.
It's such a good title. I'm not sure who needs 100 plus elementals for their campaign, but it's such a good title and it's so good. There's a Zine Quest one coming up, which was called Thrifty it's so hard to say. Thrifty Trades of Fae. It's not 50 Shades of Grey, but Thrifty Trades of Fae, and it's like a magic item shop. I love that title so much. I think it's going to do great. And so many Zine Quest is so exciting because there's just so many. It's like a license to try something very tiny. Most people are like, okay, I'm going to create a universe. I'm going to create a source book. These are the 35 languages spoken by all the various peoples of my world. It's like this big thing that, I don't know. I think it's a lot harder for people who have existing campaigns to plug something that gigantic into it. It's more like, okay, we're all starting from scratch. We're going to use this book as our Bible.
Yeah.
But most people aren't starting from scratch. Most people are involved in campaigns. So something you can plug into it, like Thrifty Trades of Fae or New Elementals, that's pretty awesome. So I don't know. I love it. It's a very exciting time. Things are usually very inexpensive. You can back something on Kickstarter or Indiegogo or BackerKit for $1 or $5 for the electronic version. So I have earmarked like $100 just to go pick stuff up. Like I'm going to go there. Like I usually do at Artist Alley at comic book conventions. I'm like, here's $100. Go through Artist Alley and find cool stuff. I feel like it's a great time to do just that.
No, I am officially declaring now that I will not have a zine for a Zine Quest.
Well, you're gearing up for some other stuff.
Yeah, I just went, because I've got March is Gary Con,
right? And
I'm working on that. Because now I'm DMing Flag and the Dragons Adventures there. That's the one you went on at Gamehole Con. Awesome. I'm doing that for whoever signs up the regular crowd, and then I've got the show Catacombs and Creators with Tommy Gafton, Levi Combs, Matt Forbeck, and some guy named Ed Greenwood.
Heard of him?
Yeah, he's supposedly into D&D, and so I'm DMing that. So I'm working on that, and the adventure for that is officially going to be called Gateways and Grognards.
Okay.
And so I'm, working on that stuff. Come here, Jolene. So yeah, I've just got, plus I want to get, my Patreon started. I've got, I got it launching this month, and I've got little things here and there, but I want to get more stuff out there. I want to keep that going. So I think February is just, this year is not a good time for me. And then I've got 4D20, which I plan to launch in April. So yeah, my stovetop of various burners is very active, and there's nothing on the back burner right now. So everything's got up on the front burners.
That's awesome.
So I'm doing a little juggling routine.
That's great. Your dogs are really excited this morning. They're very happy about the 50th birthday of D&D.
Yeah, hold on one sec.
Well, folks who don't know, I believe you can check out Dan. Dan's work. There are links in the chat. Dan has a Patreon at zerolevelmedia.com. I've got one over at steveconley.com. I've been uploading magic items this year for 5th edition. So if you want to check those out, you can. But you can find Dan's Patreon at zerolevelmedia.com. Not Zero Level Media, but patreon.com/zerolevelmedia.
Thanks for the plug. I can find it at zerolevelmedia.com. I think it's a direct.
Sweet. And what's the URL for the 4D20 system? I know you have a sign-up sheet.
4D20system.com.
Perfect. 4D20system.com.
Yep.
Okay. I showed you this for a second. I had it on the screen for a minute. Boom. I had this last week. I was not here. I was at a comic convention called the Central Florida Comic Con, It was barely a Comic-Con. Comic-Cons are evolving into this not comics place. You know, it's been doing that forever. It's been pop culture conventions. But having this on the table was huge. But it was really interesting that the hall I was in had maybe 10 comics and comics publishers. It had like 5 soap vendors. It was like there was like 7 voice actors, but had Tom Kenny, the voice of SpongeBob, over in one corner. So it was very much a pop culture thing. D&D, my D&D stuff sold better than my comics did. I think the more people play D&D than read comics at this event. So having this on the table was a big deal. This is one of the first large prints coming out of my printer. I had to print it in pieces because this is just too dumb and large. Like the hand and the axe is one piece, and the foot and the platform's another piece. And
I love it.
A grognard. So
yes.
I will send you more artwork for your Gates and Grognards event.
Yes, I gotta get my printer working so I can print one of those and put it on. Well, I don't think my printer can print something that big.
You got to print in chunks. Yeah, I had to print it in pieces.
No, so that's where I'm at. I plan on spending all day today working on D&D just to try to catch up on stuff. So
what's the primary thing on your plate?
Today, I got to finish up a 9-room adventure for my Patreon that I promised I'd have done by the end of the month.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So at patreon.com/zerolevelmedia, a 9-room dungeon. That's great.
Yeah, because what I'm going to do is once a month, Dyson Logos releases maps. And so I'm going to take one of those, and the following month I will have an adventure tacked to the map that he releases.
That's great. That's a lovely idea.
Yeah.
So this isn't part of Warren Holt, or maybe you'll use pieces of this in Warren Holt?
No, it's just its own little individual.
Okay.
You know, boom, there you go.
That's lovely.
Yeah. So, and then we talked about 2 weeks ago how I should I want to do an actual play stream.
You've talked about that for a while, and Catacombs and Comedians has done a couple in the past, which I recommend people check out, because I thought, despite some technical difficulties, were quite entertaining.
But you suggested that rather than get comedians together, I should get creators together.
Or in addition to, I still think Catacombs and Comedians is such a great title. It should be the focus, but I think it's going to be. I think you have to be. I think that's at the size of Catacombs and Comedians is now. I suspect that the comedians you get are going to be ones who are squeezing this in between other things. But once you get people who are dedicated and just as into it as you are, I think you've got a few ringers who would be on board and professional every time. You have to find that alchemical mix of 4 people who it all comes together. Because right now it feels like it's just one lab like explosion after another.
Just like any other D&D session.
Yeah.
Trying to get it scheduled together. But okay, side story. Last week I was at the local comedy club here, Zanies, where I've done my show before. And we were just there. Wife and I were there to see another comic, I wasn't there on business. I was there in the audience. But afterwards I, going in the green room because I'm kind of a big deal. And one of the comics who was performing that night asked me, "Hey, you're the D&D guy. How's your D&D stuff going?" And he's like, "I want in on it." So that was the first time I had a comedian. And I told him, "Well, I'm doing this and this." And he's like, "Oh, I know that I'm doing this with this comic." And he's like, "Or I'm doing the Gen Con show down at Helium the night before Gen Con starts with these guys." And he's like, "Oh yeah, I know all those guys. They're great guys, So that was fun. But so I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get 4 creators together for my stream. Yes, there will be a Catacombs and Comedian stream down the road, but I think right now I can get 4 creators who don't have that weird schedule that comics have. Where I can't play in your game tonight because I got to drive 180 miles to earn $50 to do a.
The Chuckle Hut just called. I can't be there. Yeah,
exactly. Or I'm too stoned to do it.
Right. And you have people who actually have webcams and microphones, and
so I'm gonna get 4 creators. I think I already hit you up as one of them.
Anything you ever need, Dan.
So I got to find 3 others, and it's going to be called Wormageddon. and it's going to be a
That's the
Dungeon
name of
Dragon.
that's the name of the campaign. That's like campaign 1 is Wormageddon.
Yeah.
Is that the idea?
Yeah, and I'm calling it a post-apocalyptic the adventure because it's after the dragons have obliterated the world.
That's awesome.
Sort of thing. It's still going to be that. Catacombs of Comedians is often silly tomfoolery, dick and fart jokes.
Sure.
This I want it to be dark humor because it's going to be a dark setting, but yet not
with dick and fart jokes.
Yeah, well, yeah, sort of. But no, that's what I'm working. That is another thing I'm working because I want to get that launched. I've got to get the Catacombs and Comedians brand going on the YouTubes and the podcast. And I'm working on the podcast, the Podventure Cast. I got artwork that I should have been ready to show you today, but I don't have it of my 3 players.
Oh, wow.
I got that completed today. I've been working on a world map for our continent map or whatever for the Wormageddon setting. I've been plugging away on my Sword and Board Tavern setting.
That's great.
So yeah, I mean, there's just so much going on. I just don't have room for that zine. That's next month.
Yeah, I think it's right. I mean, you also, we talked about this before, that you're not a huge fan of crowdfunding and the experience of crowdfunding. And so anything that can be done to make it easier. I'm recently, you mentioned before, that I just sent my surveys and had to set up the pre-order store for the Prayer's Handbook, the Metadome Cleric. And the backer kit system's changed. Kickstarter system keeps changing. Every time it was like, I want to set my backer kit store. It took a day. It took a day, and then for approval from them, and then it was reviewed back, and all the issues that I have to fix with all that stuff. So I do think that your idea of using backer kit specifically is probably a good idea, especially if you want to use backer kit on the back end, because everything's in one place. You're not trying to build it in one place and then import it into the other place and then set up everything there so they talk nicely. Kickstarter has one set of shipping things. Backer kit's got a separate set of shipping things. I know that's getting into the weeds, but I do think anyone who aspires to do kind of Kickstarter stuff, it's important to know that, this is meant to be this kind of liberating thing that removes gatekeepers. But holy cow, does the technology and all the hoops you have to jump through prohibit, I think, a lot of creative people from doing it. I think you end up having to be very business minded or very procedurally minded, spreadsheet minded in order to navigate your way through this stuff. I feel like there's a whole new kind of gatekeeper, and it's all technical.
Yeah, I would love to be able to just create and then have a partner and go, okay, put it up on the crowdfunding and make it work.
Right. There's a real market for somebody who has those skills. And I'll beg every reader, every viewer, whoever watches this, if you set up a business that your gig is, I'll help build the Kickstarter page, I'll help build the graphics, you produce the content, we'll figure out printers. I know there are some companies that do this in the comics world, like Rocket Ship. They'll handle the fulfillment. They don't even handle the fulfillment. They have fulfillment partners, and then they take a cut of all the projects that go out. There's really there's a absolute place. If someone like Levi Combs or somebody like that had if they set up something like that, if someone in a key position who could make these things and do one a month and rolling production, Rocket Ship's like that. I backed a Stan Lee project that they had, I forget the name of it. It was like based on one of Stan Lee's, posthumously one of Stan Lee's properties. They're turning into a comic, and that hasn't shipped. But there's been tons of other projects that they've done monthly since then, and they just have rolling production. It feels much more like pre-ordering comics. In that case, when the company's so big, you don't mind ordering the next thing, even if the last thing hasn't shipped. But I feel like in the tabletop space, when it's very personal, when you know the people involved, where it ends up being like Peter paying Paul, and like, let me raise the money from this campaign to pay for the last one, which it feels like that. I don't know if that's how it feels to you sometimes, but I absolutely feel like, well, you haven't shipped the last campaign, but you're asking for a new one.
Yeah,
it feels like, wait, but did you run out of money for the last? I don't know.
And I just don't have the bandwidth to handle all the elements of it. So
yeah, you got a full-time gig. you got a family, you got, by my count, at least 7 dogs.
2 dogs, 2 cats.
It's a lot.
No, and and I've got all these, and I've got the Catacombs Comedian show and the Creator show, and I've got it. It's just, I can't tell you the last time I sat down and watched television.
How important is having, this is interesting because this topic came up in another setting, in a comic setting, was talking about the love of doing the thing and the necessity to monetize it. Can we do things and not make money from them? Like, I play a weekly D&D game. There's never been a thought of, we should film this. This would be great. This would be great content. Is there a section of that in your head where you go, this part of my life or this part of D&D is something I monetize, and this part is something I enjoy just as much, but I don't monetize it?
I do have that. I mean, I don't have a regular game going on right now, but it's in the works where it's not monetized or, anything like that. And I consider, my regular full-time day gig, I have a friend that plays Dungeons and Dragons, and we just sit there and talk about D&D all day. That's part of it.
That's great.
It's much like this, but then again, we're not making any money off of this stream that we're doing right now.
What?
Oh, sorry.
But what about our sponsor?
Yeah. Checks in the mail.
So we need to make up a sponsor.
So I like the monetization of this hobby. The way I look at it is I'm never going to pay my mortgage on it. I'm never going to feed my family on it. Whatever I make off this, for the most part, there are two elements to it. One is it helps pay for my next project. It does. The $40 profit I may make out of a backbreaking, project that I put out,
right,
just goes to buy stickers for the next project
and gas. Yeah.
Second, if people are buying my stuff, that means there's some success to it. I'm doing something right.
There's that affirmation we talked about, that approval. Yes. Yeah.
Like somebody's like, oh, I'll go ahead and buy the Dirk of Many Stings on Drive-Thru RPG, available now, under zero level media. Kids.
And how much is it on Drive-Thru RPG?
$1.55. And the reason it's $1.55 is so I make $1 off every sale. That's why I figured out the exact percentage. And
if you make something free, can you make something free on Drive-Thru RPG?
Yep.
And then they don't take a cut, and you don't have to pay them to serve it, right? No. They'll just deliver it.
Yep.
Does that, if someone downloaded something for free, does that give you the same kind of charge, same kind of affirmation? Like if it came through saying someone has downloaded your book versus that $1.55, I'm wondering if the thinking is, I'm not going to make money off this, but at least I want people to see it, and I want people to know who I am. And the last 2 pages are ads talking about your other projects, because that's what happens in the world of webcomics. I give away my webcomics for free, and that builds up my audience, and then I sell them books later. That's what the Dungeon Dudes did. That's what Shadow Dark and all their free videos and all that stuff builds up the brand, and then and it's fun, and they're producing delightful content that people like. And then when they finally put it between covers, then they make some money. I'm wondering if there's a similar mechanism that creators can, or if, for all I know, they're already doing it. But would that give you the same charge, or is it the sense of I made $1? That's a different feeling.
It would come close.
Okay.
I think. Because like I'll go on Drive-Thru and I go, oh, this is free, I'll just download it, and I may never, open it or look at it, but at that moment,
oh really? Okay.
I'm just.
What is it about something that's free on Drive-Thru RPG that would appeal to you, apart from the price?
No, it's not even the price. It's just, oh, that sounds like it could be an interesting idea. Let me get it to check it out.
Right.
And then I'll just forget about it. And, I'm not opening it up right then and there.
I feel a little bit like that. There was a project that was like 100 TTRPG projects for $15 or $20. It was also support a charity. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I want to support the charity. Download this huge bundle of things. It's impenetrable. It's like it might as well be a storage locker. I'm like, I can't get into it. I don't know where to begin. It's just a bunch of zip files and PDFs. I'm like, neither here nor there. So I get the idea of getting something and like, maybe I'll get around to it.
But if somebody downloads something for free and they actually look at it and like what they see, they should by all means leave a positive review.
Yeah.
I mean, hey, you got the product for free, and if you like it, share it and let them,
Have you received a review on Drive-Thru-RPG or anything?
Yes, I have.
Wow.
But I think I may have begged for them too.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I watch a lot of YouTube videos, and a lot of people like and subscribe.
Yeah.
Begging's fine.
But no, I like my the Metal Kettle tea shop thing that I did. Got favorable reviews.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And Toxamancy is a copper seller. I've never gotten a review. I don't know what I guess that's no news is good news. I'm glad they're like, if they don't like it, they're like, or they're not motivated.
Yeah. I think most people that leave reviews only leave bad reviews.
That's fair. I do think that's the case. Checking Yelp reviews. It's like, oof.
Yeah, I mean, if I look at a restaurant review, I'm like, well, I'm not gonna, it's just so this Karen had a bad day,
right,
at this Chick-fil-A. Oh well. Hopefully, I don't have the same, or even Amazon products. I got the 1 star because it came in a damaged box.
Right, or that's my favorite thing. It came in a damaged box, or I received the wrong item. 1 star. Like, yeah. You're not even reviewing the item you got.
So I take all reviews with a grain of salt. Because you could tell, I mean, I did like Shadow, what's it? Shadow Dark?
Uh-huh.
I haven't seen yet. I want it. I haven't dropped the cash for the PDF just because I'm old fashioned. I want the book. So I'm waiting until the book gets released. But I've heard nothing but good stuff about it. So I'm eager to get that. And it's generally stuff that I'm eager to get, other than the stuff I feel like I have to buy, like yours, guilt, and
to integrate into your campaigns. My book is a must-have for any true dungeon master. Must have a copy of Toxamancy by their table. I was in my friendly local gaming store, and someone had a copy of Shadow Dark, the book, and they were reading it and sharing. Basically, it was they were doing a reading, not intentionally. People were just excited about it, and they brought in their copy. And it was just like, this is what happens when this happens. I love the concept. I love that. I think Sly Flourish plays it, and he enjoys it. I've heard really good reviews, and I think the concept is that basically you have to have buy-in from the group saying, not many of you will survive this. You'll be re-rolling lots of characters. I think
that sounds like Traveler.
Yeah, that sounds fun. That sounds fun.
So yeah, I'm looking forward to checking that out when it finally gets out. I'm looking forward to checking out the Kobold Price's Tales of the Valiant. I'm not looking forward to the Colville project, to be honest with you. When it comes out, I'll skip through it and see if there's anything I like, but it just doesn't sound like my kind of game. No, and that's no shade at, the project or, Colville's company or anything. It's just, okay. There are plenty of other role-playing games out there. I don't buy every game. I don't play every game.
Right.
And they're good.
Well, that's just it. I was wondering about that. In terms of a system, what is it that intrigues you about something? I can see why Blade Runner, because Blade Runner is this known franchise. People love Blade Runner. I played that first adventure. The assets are amazing. The way they integrate, especially if you play in a VTT, where they've integrated all those assets into, like, hey, we just uploaded to the thing, and here's the picture of the guy you see, and you can do the whole zoom in on this quadrant kind of thing, just like out of Blade Runner. that system is appeals to fans of it, just like this way Star Wars did, or Marvel superheroes. The idea that you can see Spider-Man swinging by or play Spider-Man. But I'm wondering about these other systems. If it's all going to be Lord of the Rings, essentially, if it's all going to be Dungeons and Dragons, here's your fighter, here's your wizard. Even when they explain the characters, like here's your X character, that's this system's fighter. Everything is you're communicating in the language of Dungeons and Dragons to explain this other game. I don't know what the appeal is. Matt Colville as a thoughtful game designer and kind of an institution, I can understand why that has an appeal. I gotta think that maybe a solid percentage are other game designers excited to see how he's cracked certain nuts. But I don't know. I'm not. But as a late, you're not a big. You're not throwing shade on Mr. Colville, but you're not like that. That alone is not enough for you to be excited for it. I was having the same conversation with my friends who are like, they're not excited for the next edition of Dungeons and Dragons. They don't feel like it's revolutionary enough. They don't feel like it's like where it was 4, 5 is coming out. I can't wait to see what they do. Or with whatever this next version is, 5.5, 2024. Do you have a preferred name for it?
No, I just call it D&D. Next, the new D&D.
Right, because next was was what the code name for 5 was. They didn't want to call it D&D 5th edition. The only time they ever says 5th edition apparently is on the back of the player's handbook. Just one. It says that's the only place where ever, and then in the SRD. But they were calling it D&D next. So whatever this is, let's say 5.5. I think that's what Sly Flourish calls it. With 5.5, none of that, most of the stuff that was in the playtest packets isn't in this. That was kind of like spitballing. They're going to just see what this is. We'll try this. We'll run all these things by people. Eventually, they're like too complicated, too convoluted, too different, too inapplicable to Critical Role and what they're doing. So I don't know. So there was a lot of people who weren't that excited about the next edition of D&D, but they were excited about Tales of the Valiant. They like the luck system. They like those things. So it's really weird. Like there was that talk recently of like, is this the end of the golden age? It seems like it's more like this kind of waiting room. We're all just kind of milling about, waiting for the next thing. Is it going to be D&D? Is it going to be Tales of the Valiant? Is it going to be Daggerheart?
I think it'll be D&D.
Yeah, I think so too. I think, because if there isn't anything that is truly shiny and pulls people away, almost by default, that's just the groove people are in. They're just going to play whatever they're playing. And especially if 5.5 is a just slightly polished version of 5. If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah, I mean, no, a polished version of 5e is a great system.
Yeah, well, 5 is a great system. Yeah, a lot of people are bored with it. It's been 10 years. A lot of people don't like it because of Hasbro and WotC for very good reasons. I'm only saying that because there's a bunch of Pinkertons standing right over there. A lot of people have issues with it. I get that, but it's a great system. I mean, again, like we talked about before, as someone who played 45 years ago and then took a 30-year hiatus and came right back into it, it felt like a glove. I loved 5. It felt right to me. Went back and watched like Penny Arcade's the Acquisitions Incorporated. They were playing 4th edition. I'm like, what's happening? I don't know what's happening. Is that Dungeons and Dragons? What are they playing? It might as well be Parcheesi or something.
I mean, working on my 4D20 system, I'm not reinventing the wheel here. I'm taking a lot of aspects of D&D 5e and just making it that you have to use 4D20 instead of 1D20.
And puns galore.
Yeah. But it's not like I'm not reinventing wheel. I'm just putting a snow tire on instead of a regular tire.
And you're not thinking about you're not trying to make this the new RPG.
No, it's a gimmick.
Well, I love that. Often we hear people with very lofty ambitions, and I feel like I I don't feel like Dungeons and Dragons had lofty ambitions. I think they wanted to sell out of the books they had. I think they had a ton of inventory. We'd like to get rid of this stuff, but I don't know, dude. I guess I need to read more of those early books. It seemed to be just cover scandal to scandal. I'm much more interested in the aspirational part of it. Like, did they think that they were going to supplant? Did they think they were going to replace Parker Brothers as the gaming company of the world?
If 4020 comes out, and let's say it doesn't break me financially, or mentally, or physically,
the research alone,
I'll be happy if somebody at a Gamehole Con or Gen Con or Gary Con 2 years down the line goes, "Oh, you're the 4020 guy? That was kind of cool."
Are you gonna game master? Are you gonna referee? Huh? Are you gonna,
hey, I like that.
Are you gonna referee a game at Gamehole Con of 4020?
Hopefully.
That's awesome.
It might not be on an official sanctioned event there.
Garage. There's a folding table in the lobby. Hey,
hey
kids, come over here.
Yeah, it might be played at one of the hotels.
It's a gateway game to harder games.
But yeah, I mean, 4020. Okay, you'll have your species. They'll be because we're not using race anymore. So I might, Good. you have your class. So I might come up with another name for class. Mm-hmm. But you're also going to have a strain.
Excellent.
And that strain is only 3 options. You're either indica, sativa, or hybrid. Okay. And depending on which one of those you are, gives you bonuses to certain skills and abilities and negatives to certain skills and abilities.
Already banned in many states, the 2020 game system.
But
indoctrinating children, Dan.
It's been a fun. Last weekend when you and I didn't do our little Mazes and Muses pony show, I worked on it and I was having a ball just trying to figure things out. And I think I narrowed it down to 20 skills in the game. Again, you're not going to level up in this game ever. Good. Because I figured most stoners aren't ambitious enough to level up.
Okay, so this is the thing then. What is the goal of the game?
Had to have fun and survive and have fun.
I mean, when players sit down in the game, I feel like this is the big deal. We had this conversation with a few like real thoughtful people at Gamehole Con. Way more thoughtful conversation I imagined we were going to have when we were sitting around that hotel across the way when you were like lining up all the Gary Con stuff. Like in fifth, like original D&D, gold was the key. You get gold, that's how you get experience, and that's how you level up. So the base of the game is built around the concept of acquiring gold. Very Ferengi. And then the current version of D&D has a very similar. It's got gold, or what do they call it? The what was it with the threshold leveling, the sort of landmark level? I forget, I'm messing the term up, but the idea is that at this point everyone gets a level. Very much narrative based, not based on any sort of acquisition. So those sorts of things are a lot of people playing D&D are as much as they're looking at the adventure in front of them, the quest in front of them, they're thinking, how do I get to level 3 where I get to find out my third attack or my...
Well, obviously in the 40-20 system, you're just chasing the dragon.
Fantastic. So it really is just, is this meant to be a one evening game?
For the kind of.
Okay.
Like one evening adventures, but it's not an ongoing campaign. It's like kind of like how I used to play in Anthony's garage back in the day.
All right.
So Steve, you're gonna use, we're gonna play a little 40-20 tonight, high fantasy. We're gonna play this, and I might do it to where I might set up a license where people can, create their own adventures. Hey, Steve, we're going to play so-and-so's.
Sure.
We're going to play, so-and-so's 4D20 high fantasy adventure. Which one of your characters are you going to use? No, I'm going to bring this one,
Right.
And it's just, sit down, have fun, blow 4 hours and 20 minutes. And then, that's it.
Amazing. I think Dan, I think this is going to be a hoot. I'm going to enjoy reading. You're going to enjoy reading it. I'm going to try not to say things and throw things your way because I just know I'll just keep like peppering you with stupid puns.
No, do it.
I couldn't be more happy with Referee, and this is a gateway game to harder games. I love that this is kind of all those horrible things they say about but I'm sure you're all over it. I don't want to step on your toes.
We'll just throw them in the pot, so to speak.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
you're a genius. It's gonna be a hoot.
But yeah, that's the extent of it. It's gonna be a fun convention game, I think, type of thing. Not a fun, it's not. If somebody comes up with and creates this huge ongoing campaign, I love it. That'll be awesome. Maybe down the road there will be a 420-page tome for advanced 4D20.
Well, I love the idea. I also wonder about we talked about the different conventions. Now, I know you're going to be at GaryCon. You're going to be at Gen Con. You've got the big Helium show. I've applied for Gamehole Con. Have you applied for Gamehole Con?
Yes.
Okay. Did you know in which capacity? Are you going for a table? Are you going for
podcast in that podcast alley?
Excellent
Type of thing.
I think that's a great idea. I think that's where the Legends of Evantris folks were. I think that's the kind of. I also offered to sponsor some stuff. Who knows if it'll happen? I haven't heard back yet. But I don't want to be a pest, but it's like the only show I want to do. I mean, it was such a good show for me last year. It was such a pleasant show. So good to meet you finally face to face, face to beard. But I'm really hopeful that we find ourselves back there this year.
I am too, and I'm hoping that you get in good and you get a good hotel room that's closer to share.
Yeah, that'd be great.
But no, I mean, I've already, at the show the last time we were there, I talked to Alex, and it was like it's presumed that yes, Catacombs and Creators will be there again. Although I still think I'm at the level where I got to buy a ticket or have that table,
Yeah.
If I get it, it's not. Yeah, I'm not a special guest by any means yet.
I'm a noob. I will be. I expect to be a noob it took me many years in comics to get to the point where I can be brought out and set up with a situation like that. I feel like the gaming world. I
got to earn it again. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a long way to go. I'm starting from scratch.
I mean, I don't think I ever achieved that. Oh no, Mid Ohio Con, I was a guest.
Excellent.
1 year, maybe 2 years.
Yeah, I'm. I know you're shooting for D&D fame. I'm shooting for D&D top of the C list. That's right. That's where I'm most comfortable.
I don't want to be A list. Yeah, maybe rather than being D famous, I want to be D&D notorious. D&D infamous.
I think that there's a lot of people already in that spot. I don't think you want to be there.
Okay. But yeah, that's I'm so excited about GaryCon and what's going on. Like I had to text Mr. Greenwood yesterday or 2 days ago. Just, hey, did you happen? And I was, speaking of A-listers in D&D, and then I'm like dreading. Oh, he's going to reply to me. He says, "Oh, you're bugging me too much, Dan. I can't."
Sure.
But no, he was nothing but gracious, and
he seems like a real sweetheart.
He is, and I was giddy with just getting a text back from him.
Good.
So it's a lot of fun. I'm trying right now. I dreamt up a magic sword last night. I'm trying to remember it now so I can work on it today, along with all the other D&D stuff. But no, I'm having so much fun, and I think this is going to be a great year for D&D, and I'm all in for it this year.
Yeah, I'm excited for this year. And hold on to that giddiness, Dan. I think you're at your best when you're actually like that, I think.
Rather than cynical.
Yeah, it's too easy. I mean, we're coming out of comics, and comics is like it's coming out of an abusive relationship. I think you need to be like,
God, is it? I mean, and I'm hearing comic book creators going on about what they're dealing with right now, and I'm just like, no, I'm never ever going back.
Yeah. Hold on to that giddiness. It's good.
And so I guess there you have it. Wow, an hour and 5 minutes.
Best episode yet.
Every episode's the best episode yet. Anything last minute things we need to plug or talk about?
Just everyone, if you were watching, if you did last through this entire episode, please give us an upvote. If you're watching this on the YouTubes, please subscribe to the channel. Or follow us on Twitch, and you can follow me on Twitch as well over at twitch.tv/Steve Conley. I'm also on YouTube at Steve Conley Art, and please sign up to be notified when 4D20 System goes live. You can go to 4D20system.com and check out and be notified when Dan's next big project lights up. And Nibblemancy is my next thing, and you can check that out at nibblemancy.com.
And check out catacombsandcomedians.com for everything Catacombs and Comedians, Catacombs and Creators. I'm working on Gateways and Grognards today. Got to come up with a magic sword. I got the Sword and Board Tavern to work on today, plus that cracking that Dyson map for my Patreon. So yeah, a lot of D&D on the docket for today.
That's awesome. Good luck with it all, Dan.
All right, good luck to you, Steve. Oh, with all whatever you're just waiting until your next thing, getting your surveys in.
No, it is go post office next for mail orders, taking those out, and then it's all days working on metadomain. That'll be wrapped. I want that wrapped up. It's exciting. I'm having a lot of fun with it.
See, this is all fun.
Yeah,
it is fun in games, people. It is fun in games.
We got to change the name of the show again.
All right, folks. Thanks for tuning in. We're here most Saturday mornings at 11 o'clock Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific, and may you all make your saving throws.